If you're a parent of an infant or toddler and you notice that your child is exhibiting some strange behaviors or some unusual behaviors and you're wondering if your baby may be on the autism spectrum or have autism as it's commonly called, then you're watching the right video. Because in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 specific things to look for that are red flags or signs and symptoms of autism spectrum disorder. Hi, my name is Charrick Gordon, and I've been a pediatric physical therapist for over 25 years. My specialty is early intervention, where I work with children between the ages of 0 to 3 years old. During this time, I've had a lot of opportunities to work with kids in their homes and observe them in a natural environment, and I've seen a lot of these behaviors that I'm about to share with you. Before we get into those behaviors, I'll ask you to like, comment, and share this video with anyone who you feel is worried that their child may be on the autism spectrum. So let's start off by talking about what autism is. Autism is a very that affects about 1 in every 60 live births. Now, the symptoms vary from one child to the next. I had a parent say to me, if you know one kid who's on the autism spectrum, you know one kid who's on the autism spectrum. It's called a spectrum because there are different levels of it. It goes from mild, moderate to severe, or level 1, level 2, level 3. And each of those can have a wide variety of symptoms, but there are very specific things that you can look for to where you might say, you know what, I feel like I want to get some more information. I want to speak to my doctor, speak to the pediatrician, and get a referral for a neurodevelopmental evaluation. So let's talk about the first symptom that I like to look for as an early intervention therapist: eye contact. A lot of times parents see me working with their kids and they'll see me look at their child and do this. What I'm doing with that is, first of all, I'm checking, I call it my circuit tester. I'm checking to see, is your child paying attention and making good eye contact with me? Did your baby or your infant or your one-year-old realize that that message was specifically for them, and were they able to process it and respond to it? A lot of times with kids who are, I suspect, are on the spectrum, they will be looking off to the side, or they're looking someplace else, or they're looking down. And so that's one of the first things that I look for, is good quality eye contact. In case you're wondering, this is Annie. She's a therapy doll the therapists use when they're training and taking continuing education courses. And Annie is going to demonstrate some of the behaviors that you might see in your kid if your kid may be on the autism spectrum. The second sign is what's called self-stimulatory behavior. Self-stimulatory behavior, also referred to as stimming, is repetitive activity. So you may see your baby kind of batting their hands or flapping at their ears, kind of like this, or just doing these weird, quirky movements with their hands. It's called stimming, and it's a way that your toddler is using to actually soothe his or herself in order to calm down, where sometimes they might get overly agitated, and you see this kind of flapping the hands, batting the ears. Sometimes you'll see kids sticking their fingers in their ears, making repetitive circles, walking around on their tippy toes. Those are some early signs that you might want to get some more information. So that's the second sign. The third sign that you can look for are these little rigid routines. I call them like a circular loop of activity. What do I mean by that is, your kid may have a toy and they may open the toy and then close the toy. Open the toy, close the toy. They don't want to play with anything else with the toy. They're just opening it and closing it. Or like putting one thing in something and then taking it right back out and starting over. It's this loop of activity that they can engage in for an extended period of time beyond what you as a parent would feel should be reasonable for a child to, or a child of that age, a baby of that age, to be engaging in for that extended period of time. The fourth sign is poor communication skills. A lot of kids who are on the autism spectrum have delayed speech, delayed language development. So you don't see the babbling, mama, dada. You don't see that early babbling. And in some cases, the child is completely silent and making no effort to communicate with the parents or caregivers at all. The fifth sign is isolated play. If your baby seems perfectly content to sit in a corner and play by himself with no need to interact with anyone else, that is a red flag that all is not well and you should try to get some more information. At that age, if you're talking about 1 to 2 year old, they should be craving adult attention and wanting to interact, wanting to engage, and not be content to just sit and pretty much be by themselves for hours and hours at a time, where if you don't go and engage with them, they will not come to you seeking attention. The sixth red flag is just a general lack of gestures. A lot of times you can get infants and toddlers to make these little gestures where they're pointing, they're waving, they're saying bye-bye, they're clapping their hands, they're banging toys together. And you typically see less of these gestures or none of them at all. The seventh red flag or symptom that you should be looking for is a lack of shared enjoyment. Your baby should enjoy staring into your eyes, cooing with you, doing a little bit of turn taking as they develop those skills with babbling, where you do some babbling and then baby does some babbling back to you, and then you're laughing together and giggling together and smiling together. Typically with a kid on the spectrum, you will not see those kind of shared enjoyable moments. As a matter of fact, I was working with a little boy during one of my sessions. I was working with dad, mom was not home, and mom walked in the middle of the session and gave him a kiss on the cheek, and really he did not react to her. He did not turn, he did not look at her. It kind of broke my heart. I felt really bad for her. I felt bad because at his age, he should be able to reach out to mom or see mom and track mom as she walks by. And he did not react to her in any way, shape, or form. So that's another sign. The eighth warning sign or red flag that you should keep an eye out for is this preoccupation with objects, where the child may find one particular object and be super engaged in that for hours at end, to the exclusion of everything else in their environment. And also not paying attention to people as people pass by. The child will continue to ignore everyone that's passing by and just be focused on a particular object that they're playing with. The ninth sign or symptom or red flag, if you want to call it that, is just this poor imitation. You cannot get a kid who is on the spectrum to imitate you blowing bubbles, blowing kisses, winking at each other, pointing. They don't engage in that back and forth that you would typically see for a kid that age. The ninth red flag is not responding to their name. Pretty early on in their life, by the time I would say a baby is 1 year old, they know the sound of their name, or at least they should know the sound of their name, and they will turn and look when you call their name and respond to their name, even if they may not be able to do it verbally. And so you see a lack of response to the child's name. You might call their name over and over and over again. A lot of parents begin to assume that there's something wrong with their kid's hearing, when in fact the child is just not responding to the name. The 10th and final red flag that you should keep an eye out for is if you take your infant or toddler out and they seem like they are overwhelmed and overstimulated by the environment. I remember taking my son to a playground when he was younger, and my son is on the autism spectrum, by the way, and he was eager to be there. We got there, got out of the car, and I was just kind of letting him lead me, and I was following him around. But he just seemed like he was not able to focus on any one thing and enjoy any of it. He would start to swing, and then after the second swing, he leaped off in mid-swing. I had to catch him, Otherwise, he would have fallen on the ground and then ran off to go do something else. We had a ball. He would kick the ball once and then move off and go do something else. It was just way too much stimulation. And after a while, I realized it, and I told my wife, okay, we need to find someplace else to go in the park that doesn't have so many kids running around in the water and all of it, and just go play quietly. And sure enough, once we were away from all of that, he was able to settle himself down and calm down and sit and actually start playing. So these are 10 of the signs or symptoms or red flags that you can look for, and you should be able to see these pretty early on. Now, I should say, if your baby has one or two of these, it doesn't mean that your kid is on the autism spectrum. Of course, even if your kid has a couple of these, it still does not mean that your kid has autism. What you should do is use that information as a starting point and go out and try to get quality information, have your baby assessed and diagnosed formally. All right? Don't forget to hug your baby, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.